Love shouldn't be a competition. But in my family, I was the only one who didn't know the rules. I'm Natalie, 28 years old, and I've always had a complicated relationship with my family. I've mostly stayed quiet, tried to keep the peace, and swallowed my frustration, but sometimes silence is the worst option. I suppose it all started with my sister Jessica. We're 2 years apart, but the two of us have never really clicked since. We were old enough to understand competition. I would like to mention that it was outright favoritism, but it was favoritism because our parents always praised her, while I just got, "You're doing fine." It wasn't that they didn't care about me, they just loved Jessica more. She was always the smart one, the talented one, and the one who could do no wrong, and I couldn't understand why, given that we both grew up in the same home, received the same education, and had the same opportunities. Jessica had a way of making herself look even better, so it might have helped that everything she did was fantastic, and everything I did was just okay. Every time I did something noteworthy, it wasn't recognized, but if Jessica did something even slightly good, it was like the heavens opened up, and I was the one left in the background, forced to accept it because that's just the way things were. Reached a point where I decided it was pointless to try to impress them, regardless of what I did, it would never be enough, so I withdrew. I concentrated on my projects, kept my head down, and tried to establish a life for myself away from the drama of the family. That is, until I became involved with the family business, which was a small local marketing agency my parents started when I was a child. I didn't pay much attention to it growing up, but as I grew older, I noticed there was an opportunity to assist. I had expertise in branding and digital marketing, and I thought it would be a good way to spend more time with the family, earn some extra cash, and perhaps even gain some recognition for my abilities. At first, everything was going well. I was building strategies, coming up with ideas, and making things happen. For some reason, my parents were still all over Jessica, but they did start to express gratitude for what I was bringing to the table. I felt like I was finally making a difference as the business grew, but Jessica wasn't going to let that happen. She had always been the one to take center stage, but now it was getting worse. I noticed that whenever I had a new idea, she would appear out of nowhere to offer her opinion, and then my ideas would mysteriously start appearing under her name. At first, I dismissed this, assuming it was a coincidence. As time passed, it became painfully obvious that Jessica was claiming credit for everything I did. It wasn't even subtle anymore. She would repeat my ideas in front of our parents as though they were her own, and they would constantly compliment her while I was relegated to the background, and they continued to act as though I was fortunate to be seated at the table. One day, following a particularly tense meeting, Jessica claimed one of my marketing strategies. As for her own, I eventually lost it and confronted her in private. "Jessica, what's going on?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mixture of frustration and rage. "You've been taking credit for everything I've done at the company." She simply shrugged, as if it didn't happen. "Come on, Nat, you know I'm the one who knows how to make things work. You've never really been the business type." That's when I realized how deeply my sister was being favored. Supposed to be my back was turning the screws to advance, and it wasn't just her. My parents were right there with her, encouraging her and supporting her in every endeavor I made. Every project I worked on went unnoticed, and Jessica received all the praise while I was left to watch. You know what, though? I had had enough and stopped contributing to the business completely. I didn't contribute any fresh ideas, didn't intervene when something went wrong, and I simply left at first. Parents didn't even notice, but gradually the business started to deteriorate. Clients weren't impressed with the work anymore, leads dried up. And worst of all, Jessica didn't know what to do because she had always depended on me to do the work. Now that I wasn't there to clean up her mess, everything started to fall apart. I sat back and watched for a month or so, saying nothing, until I received a text from my mom about it. I felt the anger rising in me, and for a moment I just stared at the message, thinking about how far they'd pushed me and how many years I'd spent doing this. It was brief, blunt, and completely devoid of any sense of apology or understanding. "The mortgage is due, and we need you to help." Not only that, but it was as if I was still the unpaid helper they had always taken for granted. Everything they wanted without ever asking for anything in return, and now they dared to text me as though I owed them something. I didn't reply right away, but I gave it some thought. Perhaps I should make them work for it, just like they had made me work for their love and attention for all these years. After a few minutes, I just typed, "Figure it out yourselves," and then hit send, knowing that the text would be under their nose. Skin, but I was surprised by how far they would go to try to reintegrate me into their lives. A few hours later, my phone rang, and it was Jessica. I wasn't going to answer, but she sighed, so I picked it up and said, "Hello Natalie, where have you been?" My mom's voice sounded strained and desperate, "And we need your assistance because the business is getting worse." I didn't even let her finish, and I told you to figure it out yourself, but you don't get it. My mom's desperation wasn't shocking, but what followed was, I heard Jessica's voice on the other end of the line, muffled at first, then clearer as she took over from my mom, Natalie. Please, we can't do this without you, she said in a tone that was almost pleading. It was a side of her that I'd never really heard before. The confident, self-assured Jessica was gone, replaced by someone who sounded genuinely desperate, saying, I know I've messed up, I know I've taken credit for your work, and I'm sorry, I was just trying to make everyone see me as good as you always were. Her voice faltered, and for a moment, I thought, you're sorry. I repeated my voice. I don't think you were Jessica. If you were, you would have stopped doing it a long time ago, but instead, you've just gotten worse. There was a long pause until she spoke again. Spoke once more, but this time her tone was more subdued and resigned. I know I've been terrible, but it's not just about the business, Mom and Dad. They don't even notice it. They've been treating me like I'm the only one who can fix things. But I can't do it alone, Nat. I'm just acting like I had a little panic attack about something I would rather not name, guilt, maybe empathy, but no, I quickly shut that down. I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips, what do you need me to do to save you? After everything, after you stole my ideas, my work, and my opportunity to succeed, you want me to just drop everything and help you out of your mess? I could hear the desperation in her voice, and it nearly made me sick to my stomach. The struggles were about the years of being invisible and being ignored while she took all the credit. The business was in trouble, but I would rather not acknowledge that I felt any responsibility for it because I had left for a reason. They had chosen Jessica, they had ignored me, and now they were paying the price. If you don't help, everything is going to fall apart. We're losing clients, Dad is talking about closing the entire thing down, and I don't know what to do. Your knowledge, ideas, and strategies are what we need. I took a deep breath to try to calm the rising anger. You've had a month to figure things out without me. I said slowly, if you couldn't manage the business without me, that's not my problem anymore. So you can't just keep treating me like the backup plan. There was another pause, this one more awkward than the last, and then I heard my mom again. Her voice was softer now, almost as if she was trying to say, please don't do this to us, Natalie. We're your family. You've always been so good at this stuff. We need you, we want you back. I closed my eyes and gripped the phone tightly, trying to control the emotion that was rising. They had always treated me like the backup, always put Jessica first, and assumed I would simply be there for them when they needed me, but I wasn't a safety net or someone they could throw away and pick up whenever it was convenient. You know, I said in a dangerously calm voice, you want me back, but you never needed me until everything started to fall apart. You didn't mean to interrupt me in that way. I've been invisible to you for years, but now I'm supposed to drop everything and clean up your mess. You can't do that to me anymore. I'm done. I didn't even give her a chance to answer before hanging up. The decision was final, and it felt like it was, but even as I put my phone down, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything that had just happened. I would rather not admit it, but a tiny part of me did feel a little guilty. Though a small worry wasn't enough to convince me to return this time, things took an unexpected turn that evening. I was scrolling through my phone on my couch when I received another message, this time from an unknown number, from one of the company's clients. I opened it and was shivering when I read it. We've decided to go with a different agency. Thank you for all of your hard work over the past few years, but we don't think it's going to work out. To work out anymore, that was just one of the messages. Then came another, and another, and another. One by one, the clients were leaving, and the worst part was that it wasn't just the clients who were leaving, the company's reputation was suffering as well. People began to discuss how things were going wrong, the marketing tactics weren't working, and the vision my parents had was fading. I sat there looking at the messages with a mixture of satisfaction, and I had made my point and left, but as I watched everything fall apart, I couldn't help but wonder how far I was willing to let this go. I couldn't help but feel a little twisted satisfaction as I watched the business fall apart. I'd worked so hard for so long, only to have it all stolen and given to Jessica. My ideas, my energy, my work, all of it had been treated as if it were nothing, but now I was the one who was in charge. But as the hours went by, I began to feel a familiar weight in my stomach. The regret and uncertainty that I had pushed away for so long were beginning to resurface. But was I doing the right thing? Was I going to watch my family fail because of my pride? I had to admit that the thought made me uneasy. The phone buzzed again, and this time it was from Dad. Natalie. Please, we're losing everything, your mother. We have clients leaving us. I'm not sure what to do because, after all these years of complaining about me, my parents finally admitted they were having problems and needed me, but I couldn't help But I wonder if this was just another request for me to save them, only for them to treat me like I didn't exist once everything was resolved. It felt like the same story I'd heard before. They needed me, but only when things went wrong. I couldn't respond to Dad's message because I was too angry and bitter to just let it go, but a little voice in my head told me to think again and at least listen to them because, after all, they were family. I spent the next few days and a days, trying to concentrate on my work and putting the family business out of my mind, but they kept returning, always on the fourth day after I'd cut them off. My phone rang again, this time from Jessica. I considered ignoring the call, and I did, but my curiosity went out, and I picked it up. Natalie said, her voice shaking, I can't do this without you. You've always been the one who made things work, and you always knew how to fix things. I was foolish and selfish, and I've ruined everything. For a second, I almost believed her because of the desperation and vulnerability in her voice. For a moment, I thought that perhaps she had truly changed after hearing her cry, but then I recalled all the times I had been ignored and made to feel inadequate, and all of the sympathy in her voice seemed like a ploy to get me to do what she wanted. You destroyed everything, Jessica. I said icily, you took credit for everything I did, and you made me feel unworthy in my own right. Family, and now you want me to fix it for you just like that? I know I've made mistakes, she said almost beggingly, but please, Natalie, you're the only one who can save us. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you to help us help me. This silence went on for a long time, and for the first time, I wasn't sure what to say. On the one hand, I wanted to just hang up and be done with it, but on the other hand, I wanted to think she meant it. It was still possible, but after considering everything they had said and done, I felt my anger rising once more. It was so simple for them to act as though they needed me now, but where were they when I needed them? Jessica was claiming credit for everything I did, so I told her sharply, you had your chance, you didn't want my help when I offered it. Natalie began to say, no, I cut you off. You don't get to do this. I've given enough, and I'm not going to be your safety net anymore. You've made your bed, now you get to lie in it. I hung up before she could say anything more, but even though I had stood my ground, there was still a part of me that felt conflicted and worried that I couldn't fix this mess. I knew I had to decide as I stared at my phone, if I helped them, they would never respect me and would only see me as the person they could rely on when things went wrong. However, if I didn't help, if I allowed everything to fall apart, how far would they go to drag me back in? The days went by slowly, and I made an effort to ignore the pit in my stomach that seemed to get bigger every hour. My phone broke, so I prepared myself for another message from my parents or Jessica, but I remained firm and refused to let them manipulate me again. The truth was out, I was done, but that didn't stop them from trying. It had been 6 days since I stopped answering their messages and 6 days since I stopped helping with the business, so I figured that maybe they would get the message and I could move on and let them deal with their mess, but I should have known better. Better yet, it was a Tuesday afternoon when I received the first text. I was working on some freelance projects at my desk when my phone rang, and it was from my mom, which wasn't out of the ordinary, but this time, there was no greeting, just a message that made me shudder. Natalie, we need your help. The bills are mounting, and we can't keep this business afloat without you. I stared at the screen, my heart racing, and they didn't apologize or acknowledge the communication. I took a deep breath and tried to remain composed, knowing that I wasn't going to fall for it this time. I put my phone down and returned to my work, trying to concentrate, but my mind kept wandering. I remembered all the times my parents had rejected my ideas, minimized my contributions, and praised Jessica for how they treated me, despite the years of hard work I had put into that company. Doing the bare minimum, the frustration had been building for years, but this was the last straw. I didn't respond to the message, but an hour later, my phone buzzed again, this time from Jessica. The message began, please, Natalie, we need you. I'm trying to fix things here, but it's falling apart without you. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Please come back. I could already feel the tears in her eyes, but I knew I wasn't buying it. The same strategy she had been using for years to manipulate me into returning was precisely what she was doing. She used guilt to make me feel responsible for everything, but I was tired of having to clean up after her. I put the phone down again, my hand shaking, but I couldn't resist the urge to help. The pull to be there for my family was strong, but I also knew that if I gave in now, nothing would change. They would just continue to use me until I was completely exhausted. The rest of the day was calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was holding my breath for the next bombshell to be revealed. The next morning, I received another message from my dad. This time it was brief and direct. We can't do this without you. You are the only one who can save the business. Don't be selfish. That's when I finally lost it. After everything they had done to me, they had dismissed my efforts and called me selfish. I picked up my phone and called Jessica, who answered on the first ring. Her voice was frantic. Natalie, please, enough. I interrupted, saying, I'm done. You and Dad have made it clear where your priorities lie, and I am not part of that anymore. I can't keep fixing your messes. There was a long pause on the other end, and then Jessica's voice cracked. Intend to harm you, Nat. We were unaware that you didn't understand me when I said my voice was rising. You didn't care about anything but the business, looking good, and acting as though you didn't need anyone. You used me, Jessica, to make everything look flawless while you received all the credit, and now that it's falling apart, you want me to come in and fix it for her. Her silence was deafening. I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. I said, my voice shaking. Mixture of hurt and rage, I'm not your backup plan anymore. I hung up before she could say anything more, my hands shaking. I had spoken the words I'd been suppressing for years, but now I felt empty inside. I wanted to call her back and apologize for being so harsh, but I knew it wouldn't help, and it was too late. I left my desk and stood by the window, looking out at the city below. My relationship with Jessica, the family business, and my relationship with my parents were all deteriorating, and there was nothing I could do about it. A few hours later, my phone buzzed again, but this time, it was a voicemail from my mom. Please, Natalie, you don't realize that if you don't help us, we're going to lose everything. The bills are past due, and we're going to lose the house. Your father is a mess who has been lying to us concerning the money, and I'm not sure how to resolve this. We need you to return it. Her voice was so desperate that it made my heart race, but I couldn't ignore what I had discovered. I couldn't continue to act as though I was content to be the one who always picked up the pieces. I listened to the voicemail repeatedly, but I wasn't sure how to feel anymore. Was this just another manipulation, or was it real? I didn't respond. But eventually, without my assistance, the business began to collapse. Clients started to leave, unpaid bills accumulated, and employees started to leave one by one. Before long, the creditors arrived, and my parents, who were desperate and overwhelmed, had to close down the company I had helped create that they had taken for granted. I watched from a distance as everything ended. I think Jessica is still trying to put things together, but I don't think she understands why I couldn't help anymore. Perhaps I was too harsh, or perhaps I stood my ground, but what do you guys think? Was I too quick to leave, or did I do the right thing? Crash. Jessica reached out one last time, but by that point, I had no more energy to give, and the damage had already been done. Allowing them to confront the repercussions of their behavior would be heartbreaking. To hear what you think.